Yeah, because I went with to Star Wars Weekends in Florida with Steve before I was on the show, and then I went to Star Wars Celebration in Orlando, and that kind of blew my brain apart, because I was there as much, if not more so, of a fan than I was as a character. I just kept looking around, they're like, you have to sign, you have to go somewhere and actually work, and I'm like, but I don't wanna, I wanna go and look, and there's Harrison Ford and George Lucas, and you know. So it's kind of amazing to be as much of a fan of something that I'm working on as everybody around me. So I end up just, you know, I mean, I have no words for it, but I think it was Star Wars Celebration, which was being thrown into the deep end of fandom, which was pretty fantastic. And people coming up and just, there's nothing better than somebody coming up and saying, I hate you for what you did. Thank you so much. It means a lot. It means I've made a difference. Yeah. So.
Yeah, for me, just before I had my first fan experience, D. Bradley Baker came into the studio. It was one of our last records before they had the first Star Wars weekends that I attended. And he goes, he had been part of Clone Wars. He played all the clones in Clone Wars and a million other things. And he goes, I really hope you take this in because your life is about to change. I went, really? Really? I know it's Star Wars and stuff, but really, what do you mean? He goes, you'll find out. And the next weekend, I went to Star Wars Weekends, and Rebels hadn't even aired yet. They just started doing a little promo for it, that little teaser out. And we go to Star Wars Weekends, and they put me in this convertible with a picture of Zeb on the side, and I got to ride in the parade, and I'm waving to people who have never seen my character do anything. And there was so much love from the beginning of the parade all the way to the end of the parade, and for that whole weekend, they just showered us with love, not knowing if they were even gonna like it. So to be part of something like that on that level, it was so humbling just to see how connected the fans were, and it's a global connection too. There are people there from all over the world. And there was one family that would come and they would do a family reunion at Disney, and they would all dress up in Star Wars characters, and from grandma, who was like 90-something years old in a wheelchair, to brand new babies, and they had like 50, 60, 70 people in this family. And they insisted that I was part of their tradition, and they sat me down right in front, and they surrounded me, and they took this big family photo. And so I'm part of their history too, just because I had something to do with Star Wars before they even knew if they liked or hated my character. And that was an anomaly to me. I had no idea that was happening. And to be part of a parade at Disney, I mean, got to do the wave. It's crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm sorry to repeat, but it just to be a fan of something as much as the other fans are is really astonishing. So I can sit there and talk to you guys about it for forever. And the Star Wars fans are the best. They're like the anime. They like know everything about every character and what's going on. It's truly amazing. It really is. Yeah, and an honor.
Do you ever get intimidated? Because I feel like Star Wars fans can be known for like being nitpicking. So do you ever get like intimidated by that?
The great thing about my character is that he doesn't really know anything, so I don't have to know anything. It's fantastic. And when I do, there's always an expert around that I can defer to. So I was the comedy relief on the show, so it made my job real easy. I was so grateful for that role. If I got to perform a character as intense as Kanan, for example, I would have to be more well-versed in the universe. And Freddie Prinze Jr. is a Star Wars geek, so he can handle that really well at conventions. And
worst Wookiee ever.
Yeah. Well, and also they're very protective of the franchise too, so when we would do Star Wars panels, I think this is the first Star Wars panel we've ever done that didn't have to go through the whole permission process. And so when fans would come at us like that, we would have the buffer of Dave Filoni, who was really great at deflecting everything. And so it really wasn't a problem for me. I haven't really gotten much hate, fortunately. I know that some of us have in the cast, but I personally haven't. Everybody, it's all seemed to be love, unless they're just not telling me.
Yeah, that's been my experience too.
Yeah. No, I get a lot of hate, but for the right reasons.
Good, right?
It's good hate.
Serve it.
You know, I do. And if anybody ever comes at me, I'm just like, I just call them rebel scum. Call over a stormtrooper and escort them away. You know, it's very easy.
I did my job.
I did my job today. Yes.
already about 15 minutes out now, so we'll start taking some fan questions. If anybody has
Remember the weirdest question, got the poster!
Two of them.
we have a mic runner, so.
Is it on? They have to turn it on? No, it's on.
Turn on the microphone, please.
Hi, I have a question for Mary.
Sure.
I thought it was really interesting to hear you say that Price was such an easy character for you because she was just evil. One of my favorite things about that Thrawn novel was how much it rounded her out.
Yeah.
And I know you just said that that all came out after you were done, but did you ever give it any thought afterwards about how you might have played that character any differently, maybe in the last season, if you had that kind of information?
Well, it was interesting because when we were doing it, and I'm not going to get into politics, but it was during the campaign, and it was really interesting to see a woman running, and I just sort of equated myself to what would it be like to be a woman who wanted nothing but power, and was ineffective at keeping it, and what kind of anger would that create. And I didn't know the backstory as to why that was so important to her. And now knowing it, I really don't. I mean, she was, the one thing, again, it's all about intention. And her intentions were very clear. From the minute she walked into Moff Tarkin's office, she knew exactly what she wanted, and she knew how to do it. And that's why she wanted, I think it was the Ninth Fleet, to give to Thrawn and everything else, to get this power. I don't think, because even if Henry and the writers didn't give her a sympathetic moment, and that didn't give her a moment really of vulnerability except in her own world of being ineffective. And there's nobody more dangerous than somebody that wants power, that is ineffective at it, that's still in a position of power. So that's kind of how I played her at the time. And I really don't think I would change it, because it would have changed the dynamic of everything else around me, and around the character, and around the happenstance of what occurred. So I think I would have played her exactly the same. You know?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this question is for Steve, who I'm glad I can say is older than I am.
Rub it in.
So, voice actors typically can point back to some mentor like Mel Blanc or Frank Oz or even Edgar Bergen, and I was wondering who you would point back to as the person who influenced you the most toward becoming a voice actor.
That's a great question. Well, I was a huge Mel Blanc fan before I even knew that it was humans doing that. When I actually believed those characters were real, I was a fan without even knowing it back then. So he was probably the most impactful as a child. Once I realized that this actually was a viable profession, because I didn't know, I fell into this accidentally. The ones that I looked up to were people like Frank Welker, because I started in creature work and I was fascinated by his abilities, his amazing skill set. And I think the thing that really solidified him as sort of an unwitting mentor was working with him on Scooby-Doo. I got to work with him on Scooby-Doo. Walking into that room with Casey Kasem still in the cast, and it was just an amazing experience walking in there. But the thing that really solidified it for me was not only was he brilliant, but he's kind. And we find that to be true throughout our industry. Most people are. But Frank, the very first day I met him, we recorded and we went on a little break. And I came up to him and I had to have my little fanboy moment with him. And I said, I love your work, and I didn't realize you voiced Free Willy and Flit and the Cave of Wonders and all these amazing things in all the Disney movies. And you're just a hero to me. I started in creature work, and I'll never be able to do a lot of the stuff that you do, but you're just a hero to me. And he said, you know what? He goes, here's my phone number. This can be a really difficult business, and if you ever have any problems or questions, or if you ever just want a little advice, here, contact me. And we've stayed friends since then. So he had a huge impact on my life. People like Fred, just one of the kindest humans on the planet. When I first saw him work, I was blown away by just the innate ability that he has as a genius voice actor, but also an unparalleled kindness. Fred and I consider him to be my brother, honestly, and we're fortunate to have relationships like that with with people that are technically our peers, but he does so much that I can't do, and I'm just fascinated and in a state of awe when I get to watch him. D. Bradley Baker's another one. Because he's a creature god also, and he's one of those other guys that, like Fred, I'm paired with him often in our roles. We play brothers, and just to be able to sit in a room and watch them come up with something amazing, and then they'll share their whole heart and their whole life and take the shirt off their back if you need it in real life too. Those are the mentors that I like to surround myself with, and that's why I think I landed in voiceover, period. I worked in the music industry and in film before, and people are mean. They're just mean. And in our end of the industry, we really look out for each other. So I can say that about another 200 people in our circle that had equal impact. Her, director of Cowboy Bebop, she was elected to be my very first leading role, and she taught me how to act when she didn't have to. And really helped me to find my own vulnerability as a person, besides as an actor, and that transformed my whole life. She's now my fiance in real life, by the way.
I don't deserve it because I play evil really easily.
But pretty good living with one of your mentors. It's pretty good.
You end up, and we fight a lot on, we'll be battling each other a lot, but we end up being best friends. And we had a running tally of which creature ate who. Yeah. You know, so I'll be the dragon, he'll be the knight one time, and vice versa. We had a tally of who ate who. Yeah. You know, it sounds crazy, but it was true. He ultimately wins though, because as my dragon eats him, he actually cuts himself out of my body, so he actually wins the debate.
Yeah, we would show up at sessions. We were working on a lot of shows together for a while there, and in every single time, I think, almost every session for a while, one of us would walk in the room and say, "I ate you today." Oh!
Right. No! You do that. Sorry, go on.
No, I'm done. I did it over time. Sorry.
All right, first weird question. Supposedly, if all three of you were in a golf tournament and you could pick out a character as your caddy from any of your voice acting repertoire, who would it be?
Sign that.
Which character of ours would we choose to
Be our cat.
Leron from Gurren Lagann.
Yeah, I think Mojiko, because she would have a Tachikoma filled with scotch. So, you know, and clubs, I suppose, you know, but yeah.
Just need a Zilla beast being my caddy. Would be just great. You know, just destroy the field.
That's awesome. Great question.
Great question.
That's definitely very responsible for.
As voice actors, how do you determine your range? How do you determine like what characters you're going to try and undertake, and you know, do you gravitate towards certain types of characters or things based on your vocal range or your capabilities? Would you train to go out of that box and try and do something totally different?
Yeah, I think it's in terms of sustainability in an industry that is constantly being inundated with more and more people wanting to do it, that it's really up to us to stretch our instrument to see how far we can go with it, you know, so, and because sometimes directors and producers don't really know, they have an idea of what they want, but they'll hear something that all of a sudden, I didn't expect that. I was supposed to, like the ingenue was supposed to have a high voice, and all of a sudden she's gonna have this sort of deeper, scratchy thing, and whoa, that's sort of interesting. So I think it's up to us as actors to continue to stretch ourselves, not only vocally, but also in terms of style, because the industry is constantly changing from very crazy cartoony to uber naturalistic to heightened cinematic. So we need to be able to be flexible enough to adapt to the industry to be a part of that. So yeah, and you can do that through training. You can sit at home and watch TV and parrot the voices that you hear. There are many, many different ways to stretch yourself as an actor. So yeah, and I think in the role book is audition for everything, because you never know what will hit and what will stick and what won't.
Yeah. One of the things that that's a great question. I talk about this with my students at bloomboxstudios.com. I have cards at my table. I accidentally started teaching, we'll talk about that later. But one of the things that I talk about with my students in the very beginning of their voice acting careers, I tell them to remember to play. I think that's something that a lot of us forget as adults. We just forget to play because it's kind of beaten out of us. You know, you gotta be serious, you gotta buckle down, you gotta do this. All that's great, but you gotta remember to play every single day. So as an actor, whether it's a voice actor or on camera or on stage, I think we have to be willing to take risks and try stuff that is uncomfortable for us. Even if it's not something that we can do professionally. There are a lot of things that I can't do. I'm not a very good impressionist, for example, but I'll shoot for it, and sometimes I get new characters out of it. In fact, that's the way I create a lot of new characters, is by doing a terrible impression. And it's usually my bad impression of one of our friends doing an impression of somebody, and it becomes a brand new character. So I think that you have to be kind of fearless and be willing to look stupid and be terrible. D. Bradley Baker has said you have to be willing to suck.
It's like music.
Yeah, and so
Leap into the pool of failure, because it's the only way you learn. Fail spectacularly. Get out there and just faceplant over and over and over, because at some point, it's going to pay off.
yeah. And fortunately now we have the advantage of doing auditions at home. Back in the day, we would be going out to a studio and doing auditions live. Now we do it at home in our own studios. Most people have their own studio. And I'll sometimes, even if it's something that I don't feel like I'm right for, I'll try it out first, and I'll try a bunch of different variations for it. If I feel it's really not solid quality enough, then I won't necessarily send it, or I'll just pass. But I will try everything. I will absolutely try anything and everything, and fail. And then, like I said, you know, I might not be able to do that audition well, but I've got a brand new character I can put in my pocket for the next one.
Yeah, so rarely that you do your own voice. You know, and I never get to use my real voice like this one here.
Hey, it's Wayne Wilson. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing there? It's good to
It's
see
good
you.
to see you over there. That's Wayne Wilson, huh?
That's absolutely, both are right. You know, you will get typecasted as your voice sometimes, and there are certain what they call a wheelhouse of what you do, and that's great to explore that, or maybe go in different routes of that thing. But I agree with you there. It's like you got to go do something a little different. Always be learning, always stretch, and you know, create a new character halfway through, or they'll become aware of you doing other things. It's amazing. I mean, powers that be start to learn what you can do. I got in. I think I had to scream my way in, doing so many video games and creatures and yelling, and then finally it's like, oh, I get to now do comedy characters. That's what I came in to do, or music. You know, like that's what I started with. But it's like, you know, you kind of get in and see where they want you. You don't get to choose always, but you get to create, and that's really the best part.
And be bold too. If you're a new actor, be bold and try something new. You know, when you are in the studio, if you know you feel like you can pull it off. You mentioned the caddy thing. I mentioned Leron from Gurren Lagann. That's a character that I never thought I'd get to play. If you're not familiar with that, most of my characters are really gnarly, you know, big-voiced, tough characters. And Leron spoke like this. It was, when you screw it in, give it a hard manly twist, was the first line I read for him. And when I went into audition, I wasn't auditioning for that character. They brought me in for one of the leads, one of the tough guys. And I saw the picture of the character sitting on the desk, and I said, I want to read for that. And everybody said, no, that's not for you. And it was one of my friends who was directing at the time, and he just, no, I want you to audition for this. And I begged him, and finally they let me do it. That was the character I booked on the show, and it was one of my favorite roles of all time. It was amazing. So sometimes you have to be bold enough to stick by your guns and do something that feels right to you.